When you think about the data center team, right, and you think about that concept, right, that, hey, okay, Stronghold Digital Mining has a dedicated group of individuals, both at Scrubgrass in Western Pennsylvania and at Panther Creek here in Eastern Pennsylvania, whose job function revolves around maintaining the, tens of thousands of Bitcoin mining machines that are installed, right, within the data centers at both of these facilities. So if that's the picture that one has, right, now we need to almost imagine a scenario which potentially, and I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest this, but until we hear something directly, right, from Stronghold Digital Mining, I want to be careful not to necessarily front run any news. But I get the impression, based on publicly available information, not based on any one-on-one conversations I've had or anything like that. This is just based on publicly available information on the internet. I get the impression that our new partner, Frontier Mining, I get the impression that Frontier is almost now going to be acting as the equivalent of our data center sort of like management slash technician slash fill in the blank, right? Sort of like the role of managing the data centers is going to essentially be Frontier Mining. Now, does that mean that individuals who might have been directly employed by either Stronghold Digital Mining directly or via a subsidiary, have they essentially been asked to reapply for their, sort of like reapply for your job, but now via Frontier Mining? I don't know. But I definitely, or alternatively, is it plausible that you'll still have a core, maybe handful of individuals who will still be, sort of like operating within the, sort of like in the capacity of, like, I'd say like a data center technician, but still be doing so directly as a staff member of Stronghold Digital Mining or, one of its subsidiaries. Or alternatively, is it really just going to be Frontier Mining who's essentially kind of like running the show and then answering, to Stronghold Digital Mining management? Okay. And what are the pros and cons of those approaches? Well, I think the biggest potential benefit is that, to the extent Frontier Mining can bring a lot of in-house expertise as to how to really kind of manage these data centers in a way that's going to be most efficient and most optimal, right, from a performance perspective, right, that'll benefit Stronghold Digital Mining, well, then that definitely, right, would be a very big plus, a huge plus, especially as we go into the halving, the Bitcoin halving. I think that's also particularly important to the extent these data centers are now going to start overclocking, potentially underclocking, and doing a bunch of other, hardware-specific modifications. I mean, I've been doing a lot of reading. Hey, you could sometimes, with a Bitcoin mining machine, you can install third-party firmware, which would then enable sort of like a level of, it's almost like unlocking additional features that the original equipment manufacturer of that Bitcoin mining machine, that they might not have included that enhanced functionality in the firmware that they included with the Bitcoin mining machine. So by having this, say, third-party firmware installed on the machines, you could do a whole lot more with those machines. And maybe, doing that is the kind of thing that, hey, like, our people are really good and they're really dedicated, but we need to make sure that we're doing this correctly because it could void the warranty of the machine. And if that happens, that could be problematic, especially if we end up turning a Bitcoin mining machine into the equivalent of a lump of, gob or something like that, right? We don't want to have that happen. So I'm just speculating here that maybe the thought was, let's bring in a partner like Frontier who has a lot of experience doing this, and let's let them run the show, and let's have our existing team of data center technicians, let's have them ideally, hey, go ahead and reapply for the same position you've got right now with Frontier, right? Something along those lines. And then let Frontier sort of apply their expertise as it relates to really sort of like tuning up these data centers and getting these Bitcoin mining machines optimized in ways that maybe Stronghold Digital Mining by itself would have simply taken longer to do. Note that I'm not saying that Stronghold Digital Mining wouldn't have been able to do, because I can tell you with with an overwhelming degree of confidence that the individuals who I've studied from afar, who are at Stronghold Digital Mining, are capable of anything. Okay, stuff that would blow one's mind in terms of like problem solving. The level of ingenuity is off the charts, and that's a story that just doesn't really make it to the outside world, right? So it's not a matter of like, hey, we wouldn't have been able to figure this out on our own. It's more like, hey, there's a Bitcoin halving that's coming up in April, possibly April of next year. We're a public company. We have a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders, right, to all these different stakeholders. Right from a liability standpoint as it relates to the Bitcoin mining machines themselves, if we're going to start making modifications to something like firmware, hey, we want to just kind of like really make sure that we're doing this in a manner that we can then, feel that like we're doing it sort of like in a way that's going to be least risky, And again, this is all speculative on my part, but my speculativeness, if that's the way to say it, is based on publicly available information that I'm seeing with my own eyes on the internet that I don't know that I want to necessarily share, only because I think there's also a fine line here between, being a very, I think, dedicated researcher, right? And, sort of running some sort of like weird gossip column. I mean, that's not what this channel is about. That's not what these broadcasts are about. This is not intended to be the sort of, hey, this is what's kind of going on, like in, the drama or whatever else. No, I mean, look at, we all have a singular purpose, and that's to see this business succeed, right? And to the extent helping this business succeeds means, you know what? We're going to go ahead and make a very strategic decision to bring a partner like Frontier Mining to come on board to help Stronghold Digital Mining get these data centers to a point where they're really just like even more optimized than they are today. Then that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, it's very, very interesting though. The job of being a data center technician is it strikes me as being incredibly rewarding, but also incredibly challenging. And I think that's true for practically every job, right? At Stronghold Digital Mining. I mean, think about, like the environment that you're going into every day. This is not, right? I mean, these are like gob remediation facilities, right? Waste coal remediation, reclamation facilities that have so many moving parts, right? This isn't just a data center that exists, sort of like off in the middle of nowhere, that's just energized by the grid, and all you're thinking about or all you're surrounded by is the data center. I mean, Scrubgrass and Panther Creek are very, very busy, multifaceted facilities with a lot of different moving parts. But I'll tell you, it looks like a phenomenal opportunity. It really does. I mean, I'm imagining, you're somebody who's like, hey, I'm looking for a job, and I see that, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to get a job as a data center technician and to earn some really, really good money doing so, right? It's great for one's resume. but not only that, you get to be a part of something that's like local, that's like actually really, really meaningfully local, you know? So anyway, we're going to find out more, I'm sure, on Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. That's when the Q3 2023 investor presentation is going to take place at, I believe, 11 o'clock in the morning. And this all ties in together, right? As I said yesterday, hey, we're probably going to hear more about the status of the so-called third site, right? The third data center site. Whether it's going to be an announcement as to, hey, this is where that location is going to be, or alternatively, maybe just more of a recognition that, you know what, it's still a work in progress. But either way, we're gonna find out something on the 14th, if not before that. Similarly, I suspect we're going to find out a bit more about this relationship with Frontier. Because I think there's tremendous potential in this relationship, and I really do believe that. But I also think that it might represent a little bit of a shift in the way the business is being operated, right? Because, and I want to choose my words carefully here, because again, Stronghold Digital Mining has a lot of subsidiaries, okay? And I think for simplicity's sake, it's just easier to say, hey, Stronghold Digital Mining has a power plant team or a data center team. But when you start peeling back the layers of the so-called onion and you kind of figure things out, right, in a little bit more granular detail, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And it's a little bit more, I don't want to say complicated, but there's more to it than that, right? And so in some ways, I think what we're seeing with regard to the data centers, in some ways, isn't that dramatically different from what occurs with regard to the maintenance and operation of the actual, let's call it the power plant side of things. And again, I'm sort of simplifying this. I'm sort of choosing my words carefully. But suffice it to say that I'm extremely, legitimately excited by the fact that it appears as if though Stronghold Digital Mining is taking, as they have from day one, really, but they're taking, I think, this topic of really trying to optimize the data centers super seriously. I think we're kind of past that initial point where it's like, hey, the heavy lifting is just kind of getting these data centers, filled up with Bitcoin mining machines, getting those machines turned on, getting them synced into a Bitcoin mining pool, right? Let's get them mining Bitcoin, right? That's kind of like the first step. Now, this is going to be a little bit more, to the extent it's what I suspect it might be, this is going to be a bit more technical, especially if we're doing any adjustments to firmware and, underclocking, overclocking. That's going to definitely be a little bit more complex, to say the least. I mean, not dramatically so, but yeah, I mean, relative to maybe what we've been doing till this point, it's going to be a little bit more to it than meets the eye. So, hey, congratulations to Frontier Mining and Stronghold Digital Mining for, did I say? Yeah, Frontier Mining. Yeah, sorry. All these company names with the word mining in it, sometimes they all meld together. Anyway, congratulations to both companies for striking what seems to be a really good win-win, agreement. And I'm looking forward, as I'm sure you are, to hearing more about that agreement during our investor presentation. But suffice it to say, my speculative guess in summary is that I think the data center teams that we've traditionally thought of as being Stronghold Digital Mining data center teams might now, in sort of like practice, be Frontier Mining data center teams. And again, I'll leave it at that, but we'll get all the details right from the company itself right on the 14th. Okay, with all of that said, let's be positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again tomorrow.